This is The Bracketologists, your home for March Madness coverage, presented by Anchor.
Conference Championship Week is well underway, and we can't imagine it getting any better than this. How's it going, guys? I'm Brandon Matula, and this is The Bracketologists, your home for March Madness coverage. The big tournament is coming, y'all. This Sunday, the selection committee is going to select the teams that are going to be in the tournament, all 68 of them, and that's when we can start filling out our brackets and have a blast doing it. Today is going to be a similar episode to the past Tuesday episodes. We're going to go over the top 25, just study the movements in there. We're then going to study movements in the current bracket projections presented by Joe Lunardi, recap some big games that we highlighted on Thursday's episode, name the team of the weekend, and stay tuned at the end because I'm going to announce the launch of the tournament pool and what the prize is. It's going to be free to enter. That's right, folks, free to enter. So stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this show on the road, starting with the top 25, AP top 25. Looking at it here, not a lot of big movements. I mean, not a ton of new teams. It's just a lot of shifting. And the highest shift this week was 5. And that was the team that went down, and that was USC. Let's look at 25 through 20. North Carolina making their way in after the big win over Duke. We'll talk about that later. Iowa staying stagnant. They're the only team above number 6 in the country that stayed stagnant. So good for the Hawkeyes in that regard. Colorado State makes their way in. They were another receiving vote last week, and they were the first highest in that category. So they make their way into the top 25, 24-4. That is a great record for the Rams. We'll have to see what they do this week in Conference Championship Week. Texas stays at 22, falling 1 after a loss this past week to Kansas in overtime. We'll go over that game. That was a huge one. And USC, the biggest drop out of anybody, drops 5 spots. They are at number 21. This was expected. I mean, losing 91-71 to Arizona is like ridiculous. You can't do that. And then losing on the road to UCLA, that's fine. I mean, it's on the road, but a home loss to Arizona, like, whew, y'all, that is just not where you want to be as of right now. We'll really look closely at their current ranking in the bracket projections, according to Joe Lunardi. UConn at 20 falls to. They had a tough loss this weekend, but they rebounded and beat Georgetown. I mean, that's not saying much being Georgetown, but at least they can say that they rebounded. Murray State, the champions out of the Ohio Valley Conference, alma mater of John Morant. They find themselves at number 19. Let's see how high they can fly. I'm excited to see where they go. We'll really look and see where they are after they punch their ticket for the tournament. Houston falls 4 spots after their loss to Memphis. We'll go over this game as well. The Cougars had a great week. They won 6 straight games in the past 2 weeks, but 3 straight games this week, and then lost on the road to Memphis. St. Mary's goes up to, good for them, undefeated week. They continue to go up in the rankings as they get ready for their battle against Gonzaga. Illinois going up 4 spots. Good for them. Big win against Iowa this past week. And I'm excited to see where the Fighting Illini go. Arkansas at 15 falls 1 spot after their loss to Tennessee. They're kind of cooling off now. I mean, they've been hot as of late. And I need to see more of them this coming week in the SEC Championship Tournament. Another team that's been hot, Texas Tech. They fall 2 spots. They're starting to lose their heat now, which makes me kind of sad because I was really enjoying watching this squad play. We know that they lost to TCU last week. They recovered and beat Kansas State at home, and then they lose to Oklahoma State on the road, losing by 1. I get it. It's one shot, but come on, y'all. It's March. This is when you need to be showing your best guns. No pun intended for the Red Raiders. So let's go ahead and look at more of the rankings here. Looking at 13, we got UCLA going up 4 spots. They had a big win against USC. Good for them, 23-6 on the year. We'll have to see where they go in the Pac-12 tournament. Wisconsin, they had the Big Ten championship in the bag, but now they have to share it with multiple teams. They're at number 12 after their loss to Nebraska, 74-73. Big upsets this past weekend. I was very disappointed in Wisconsin. I mean, you just made it to win your first conference championship in a long time, and you drop it through a loss to Nebraska, who isn't the most impressive team. So I think it's right that they fell 2 spots. Providence at number 11, they fall 2 spots as well. Again, just losing to teams that you shouldn't down the stretch. They lost to Villanova in this case, and that's okay. They had their only 2 losses this month, I believe, are to Villanova. So Providence, in my eyes, was a team that should have beaten Villanova. I know that sounds crazy because Villanova, we know it, they've won championships. They've been to the championship. But again, this is a team, in my opinion, that the Friars should have won. I wasn't very impressed with their loss here, but be watching them because they're going to get their revenge in the Big East tournament. All right, top 10. Here we go. Purdue tied at 9 with Tennessee. You've been seeing a lot of ties lately. It's very interesting. Tennessee had a big win against Arkansas. Watched a little bit of that game. We'll go over that. Purdue technically going down 1 spot. Tennessee, I guess, has the tiebreaker, but they're technically tied. Not really sure how that works. They lost to Wisconsin to potentially lose the Big Ten regular season title, but they ended up tying after their win to Indiana. So good for them. We'll have to see how they fare in the Big Ten tournament. It's going to be a very entertaining one if you're a fan of conference tournaments. All right, top 10. Here's the rest of them. Villanova at 8. Makes sense. Big win at home over Providence. Big East title looks to be theirs in the tournament. Duke, disappointing loss to North Carolina. They really need to recuperate. Coach K said that they're really going to shake up things, and they're not done yet. So let's see if Coach K's farewell season can have a nice ring to it with the Final Four bid. Kansas stays stagnant in the top 10. One of the 4 teams to do so. They had a good week against Texas. I think I would have liked them to not go to overtime with them, but that's okay. I mean, Texas is a great team, and you got a great home court atmosphere in the Fog. So good for the Jayhawks. Let's see how they do in the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. Kentucky goes up 2 spots. I predicted them to win against Florida, and they did so. So good for them. Happy to see where they're at, and we'll have to see how they fare in the SEC tournament, as well as their conference neighbor, Auburn, going up 1 spot. They're starting to fix things up now. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the Tigers, out of Auburn, but we'll have to see how they do in the SEC tournament. There's going to be a lot of hungry teams in there, so it'll truly show Auburn's true colors. Top 3 to finish things off. Baylor stays stagnant. They got 3 votes to be number 1 in the country. In my eyes, I think the Bears are number 1 right now. I mean, 7-man rotation, winning the games that they've won these past 3. Kansas at home, winning by 10. Texas on the road, 68-61. And Iowa State winning that one. That's unbelievable. Great games, winning. All 3 of those teams are tournament teams. So you got to give credit where credit's due. Baylor, in my eyes, is truly the number one team, but the AP committee doesn't think so. They think Arizona is at 2. Great recovery by them. Big win over USC. Love to see this team fighting. 28 wins, 3 losses. Let's see if they get to 30 through that tournament. And Gonzaga about to play in their West Coast Conference Championship as the number one team. They look to get revenge over St. Mary's, who's meeting them there, currently ranked at 17. And we saw that loss a few weeks ago that Tommy predicted. And, man, I don't see it happening again. But, I mean, crazy things happen in the month of March. So we'll have to see how that goes. But that about does it for the top 25. Very excited to see how these teams fare this week in Conference Championship Week. All right, let's go ahead and go over some games that we highlighted on Thursday. Before we get into that, it's time to recognize some teams that have already punched their tickets. The lesser conferences have their tournament games earlier this week and even the week this past week. So let's look at some of these. Longview punches their ticket. Didn't get to watch them too much. I'll definitely be studying them a little bit. They could be a Cinderella team this year. Who knows? Loyola, for a 3rd straight time, making their way to the tournament. I'm excited to see what they do this year. They don't really have a team that they had last year, or really even a team that they had the year that they went off and shocked everybody in 2019, but be watching them. Murray State, out of all the conference championship winners this weekend, Murray State is the team to watch. I think this is the best team to come out. People are going to see them. They're going to have a higher seed, and they're going to beat some big teams. They're currently ranked 19, and people are going to be surprised. Oh, Murray State? And I'm going to be like, you know what? I tried to tell you, this team is legit. I see this team going to possibly the Sweet 16. We'll have to see where they're placed. Chattanooga making their way in after that crazy long range 3 to send them to the dance. Very March-esque of them to enter the tournament like that. We'll have to see where they're placed. I think they might be a first 4 team. We'll have to see what happens. And then Georgia State, out of the Sun Belt Conference, makes their way in. They made it in 2019, I believe. Yes, they made it in 2019. Made their way there in the tournament. Lost to Houston in the first round, but they make their way back. I mean, they're conference champions, y'all. These are teams that you have to look for. Like, we call these teams sometimes like Cinderellas, but when really they're good teams, they're winning conference championships. So we got to recognize them. Let's go over some games from this past weekend. We'll start on Saturday. We'll look at a game that really surprised me. We got to talk about this. North Carolina at Duke. It was Coach K's last game at home, and he ended up losing. They lost 94-81, and I didn't get to watch this one too closely. But man, I think it goes without saying that Duke's defense was just not where it needed to be. And that's not like Coach K. At the end of the game, he announced that, like, this tonight was on me, and the players did not do too good tonight, but they had an incredible season, and they are not done yet. So that is the right stuff you want to hear from Coach K, especially in the month of March. I think this is going to motivate his team a whole bunch. We'll have to see where they go from here, but because of it, North Carolina further solidifies their spot in the tournament. They are currently slated to be let's look here at the current projections. North Carolina currently slated at a 10 seed in the Midwest Division, hosted in Chicago. They're slated to go against Iowa State, and this is an uptrend. I think they were a 12 seed last week, but they go up after winning on the road in a hostile environment for Coach K's last game. So we all know that this is a blue blood rivalry, and they spoiled Coach K's last home game. So they got to be feeling good right now. Proud to see the Tar Heels doing really well. Duke, this doesn't do too much to them. We'll have to see how they do in the ACC tournament this week. They're currently slated as an automatic qualifier at the 2 seed. This seems about right to me. Their path in the tournament is looking really good to make at least a Sweet 16. So I'm excited to see where they go. They're slated to be in the South Regional, so that's nice. I might try to go watch them in San Antonio, possibly. We'll have to see if my budget will allow that. Some other games that we need to look at were big shockers in my eyes. So the first one that I want to talk about was a shocker to me, may not be a shocker to others, was a game between Arkansas and Tennessee. I really thought Arkansas was going to take this, but Tennessee led this game pretty much the entire time. And Arkansas got close at the end. Kudos to them. Like, they had a good second win in the second half, but this game was 52. At halftime, it was 50-29. So, that just shows you what this game was like. Tennessee led this game the entire time, and they did a great job. I was very impressed with the Volunteers, and let's talk about some bracket implications from this game, because it definitely had those. Tennessee slated to be a 3 seed still, so they hold their spot. So I think regardless of what happens in the conference tournament, I think Tennessee is going to keep their spot at 3. Good spot to have. You play a tough 6 seed, but you then have to play a 2 seed. So it's one of the tougher parts, but I wouldn't like to be a 5 or 4 seed, because that's the one where you have to go against a seeding that's right next to you, and then a 1 seed after you win that. So that's a tougher road to the tournament. But Tennessee at a good spot right now. They would love to get to a 2 seed, but I don't see that happening unless they win the SEC tournament. Let's check out where Arkansas is. They're at a 5 seed. They go up a little bit in the 5 seed rankings. So interesting that they decided to move them up. I would have moved them down as far as 5 seeds go. I would never put them at a 6 seed, but I'm surprised they moved up. But they move up to a 5 seed in the East Division, according to Joe Lunardi. So good on them. I'm happy for them there. This is a game that I watched closely because this is a team that I've been talking about quite frequently, and it was between Alabama and LSU. Overtime game. LSU had a clutch block at the end of the game, and they laid it up and took the lead and iced the game with a free throw and ended up winning. Darius Days, 24 points, 8 of 15 shooting, 5 of 6 for 3 free throws. Great performances there. LSU, currently a 6 seed. Again, they got to put these guys in the top 25. They have had fantastic wins this year. Almost beat Arkansas this week. They lost to Kentucky, understood, but they have had some big wins here and there. I know they're losing to teams that they shouldn't have, but you got to put LSU in. I think this is a good team, and I'm excited to see what they do in the SEC tournament. They currently have a bye until the second round, and their team that they're going to play is TBD, so we'll have to see where they go. Alabama, on the other hand, has had a tough go. 2 straight losses, one of which came to Texas A&M that pretty much gave them a shot for a little bit at making the tournament. They were the next set of 4 teams out, and now they're not there. But that's how much of a loss that was for Alabama. They made A&M look like a tournament team, and that's just not the case this year unless they can win the tournament in the SEC. They lost 87-71 in that game. Gosh, just Alabama not playing as well as they started this year. And then they lose on the road to LSU, which is understandable. This is a loss that makes sense to me, but gosh, you got to get your act together, Alabama. Come on. They're currently slated as a 5 seed. I would even put them at a 6 seed. If they lose in their first game in the SEC tournament, you got to put them at a 6 seed. That's just unacceptable. They're just not playing up to par of what is expected out of them. They were expected to be a great team this year, and they were a great team last year. So they need to get their act together. Big upset between Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. I couldn't really understand what happened here. I think Texas Tech, just across the board, just didn't shoot well. Their best score was 4 of 11 from the field. So that kind of makes sense to me as to why they didn't do as well as they could have. They played really deep in their rotation. They had an 11-man rotation. I don't think Texas Tech usually does that, but Oklahoma State sure does. Well, excluding Newton. I think that was a tribute to his senior day. But, man, Oklahoma State really shocks them. Oklahoma State isn't going anywhere as far as the tournament goes, but Texas Tech, they're going places. And once again, Texas Tech drops a big game. I'm very shocked to see them start March the way they have. They have their first Big 12 tournament game against Iowa State, and I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State stole this game. Texas Tech, currently slated to be a 3 seed. This surprises me. I think this should be a 4 seed now. That is an unacceptable loss. I get it. It's 1 point, but they're a 15 and 15 team. You can't have losses like that. That's just unacceptable. I need to see a lot more from Texas Tech to up my confidence now. I talked a few weeks back to attest to my confidence in them, but now I just don't have it anymore. Sad to see, but that is the case. Let's talk about another Texas team. Texas against KU. KU pulls out in overtime. This game had 15 plus lead changes. So this was a great game. Texas just couldn't catch up in overtime. Good for Kansas. Kansas stayed stagnant in the rankings. You got to give a shout out to McCormack. 22 points, 6 of 13 shooting, 10 of 10 for free throws, guys. That's the stat line you need to watch when it comes to March. You got to look at teams' free throws because, yes, last second shots are what makes March great, but free throws can seal it and can make it to where you don't even need to make those crazy shots. And Kansas is definitely capable of that. And if your high scorer is doing that, that looks great on a sheet of paper, and it'll look great on the court. Kansas still slated to be a 1 seed. I don't see that changing even if they don't win the Big 12. But Kansas is looking good right now. They haven't been great in the tournament in the past few years, but I expect them to make it far this year, possibly in Elite 8. We'll have to see what happens and where they are placed. Texas at a 5 seed. I agree with this. They had a great game here. I mean, you're playing at Kansas, so you got to give them credit. They lost to Baylor on the 28th of February. I mean, it's Baylor. I mean, that's a tough game. But I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Texas. Although they're losing with dignity. So that is really good to see, in my opinion. TCU, a team that they play in the Big 12 tournament, we'll have to see how they fare in that. TCU's red hot right now, so you got to hope for the Horns to pull through. It's going to be a competitive Big 12 tournament. All right, well, 2 more games for the Saturday slot. Baylor beating Iowa State. This game, I called Baylor winning this game by a few, and they did exactly that. They were up by a lot at one point. I think in the first quarter, they were up 36-15 with about 5 minutes left. Baylor's looking good, y'all. And they're getting ready to make another big run at the tournament. Looking at their placing right now, they're currently slated to be a 1 seed. I'm excited for this Baylor team. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. They got, in that, as far as that region goes, if y'all are following along with me with Joe Lunardi's projections, they have, in my opinion, the best spot. Of course, they're a 1 seed, but like there's just nobody that sticks out to me that can really shake things up for Baylor. We'll have to see if Long Beach State, who's slated there, an automatic qualifier, but I don't see that happening. Baylor is looking good, and they're going to make another run at it. The defending champs are looking great right now with their small rotation. This past weekend, it was just 7 once again. So we'll see how that works for them. I don't see them winning the Big 12 championship now. That's too small of a rotation, in my opinion. And I think they need to rest up for the tournament. So I think they're going to take that with dignity. Iowa State, currently slated to be a 7 seed. I think this is about right. They can shake things up, possibly get to 6 seed if they make it to the championship game. But otherwise, I think they're staying at a 7 seed. This is a solid Iowa State team, but they are not elite by any means. So keep an eye on them. They can get a few wins here and there, but I don't see them going as far as round of 32. I think that's their ceiling. All right, last Saturday game, UCLA and USC. USC has just not looked good these past weeks. Losing big by 20 to Arizona at home. That should have been a game where they should have at least gotten close to beating them, but it was a 20-point game. And then they lose to UCLA on the road, big rival team, and UCLA pulls ahead of them in the top 25. I'm not liking USC right now, so let's see where Joe Lunardi has him, and he has him at 6. And they haven't moved at all. But in my eyes, guys, they got to be a 7 seed. They are just not good in my eyes. They just are not cutting it as far as 6 seeds go. UCLA, on the other hand, they are looking good. They are for sure lock in the tournament this year. Last year, they were a first 4 team, barely got in, but they are locked at a 4 seed in the West Regional. I'm excited to see where they go as far as their spotting goes, specifically on selection day. But yeah, I'm excited to see where they go. It could be an exciting year once again. All right, just a few games on Sunday, and we're going to move on. Houston, big loss to Memphis. Memphis pretty much solidifies their spot in the tournament. I don't think they're any longer a first 4 team. Joe Lunardi has them as the last 4 in. I think, in my eyes, I think he's just waiting for them to make it to the American Conference Championship. And I think that's fair, but I don't see this team being a first 4 team. He has them at an 11 seed. And keep in mind, an 11 seed made it all the way to the Final Four last year. So you never know what can happen. But Memphis, in my eyes, I think they're at least a 10th seed. You got to give them credit. I mean, a big win at home like that over a pretty stout Houston team, you got to give credit where credit's due. But we got to see if they can get Emoni Bates back. That can be critical to a tournament bid. Michigan beating Ohio State 75-69. Michigan is the last team to have a bye in the bracket. Ohio State is in as of right now as a 6th seed. They fall a little bit. Understandable, losing at home against Michigan. You can't do that, especially not in the month of March. Another big game, Nebraska and Wisconsin. Nebraska nowhere to be found on this bracket, but they have had some key wins as of late. While Wisconsin, they just clinched that Big Ten regular season title, and they're a 3 seed, and they don't move, but man, they would have had potential to move up because they had a big win, sealing the Big Ten championship. I'm excited to see where the Badgers go. I know, disappointing weekend for them, but I'm excited to see where they go. I really, really, really love looking at it here. Let me see. think it's Davidson. Yeah, one player that I truly enjoy watching is Johnny Davis, sophomore, 6'5". I expect him to go in the draft this year. He might be player of the year, averaging 20 points a game, 8 rebounds and 2 assists, and 45% from the field. He is a true specimen. He didn't have a great game in this one. He was 4-4, but come on, you got to be better than that. To be a candidate for player of the year, you can't play like that. So Wisconsin, be watching them. And to wrap things up, Illinois wins their game by 2 over Iowa at home. They slingshot into the rankings, going pretty high up. I think they went 4 spots up, but they're currently slated to be a 4 seed. Great spotting for them. I agree with this 100%. Let's just see if they can hold it. And if they want to hold it, they got to make it far in the Big Ten tournament. Iowa, on the other hand, they stay at number 25, so I imagine they stay in the current projections, and they actually fall to a 7 seed. Currently slated to go against Davidson, a 10 seed. Steph Curry's alma mater, so that'll be interesting. But that about does it for recaps. Lots of games to go over, lots of bracket implications. Thank you guys for your patience. Let's get into what's next. It's time to name the team of the weekend. Wow, just a lot of great candidates to select from. In my eyes, I got to give it to Tennessee. I know it got close at the end against Arkansas, but Tennessee is really beginning to impressed me. 50 points in the first half. That is amazing for anybody. It doesn't matter if it's in the first or the second half, but they allow 45 points to Arkansas in the second half, but I imagine most of those, I kind of stopped watching towards the end because it was way out of hand with about 6 minutes left. Tennessee was up by 17. And my rule is if you're up by more than 15 with about 5 minutes left, you've pretty much have it sealed. But if it's anywhere within that, it's definitely feasible. And my equation worked there. Although Arkansas got a little bit close, the game was not close at all. Tennessee won this in dominating fashion, and I expect them to have a great, great SEC championship run, possibly being named champions. We'll have to see what happens. But they got to fight Auburn and Kentucky at the top. I think they have a bye all the way to the quarterfinal. So that is awesome to hear if you're a Volunteer fan. Currently slated at number 9 and currently slated as a 3 seed, I believe, in the current projections according to Joe Lunardi. Okay, that's pretty much all of the segments today. And now it's time to announce the launch of the tournament pool. I'm going to launch the link on Friday. It'll be after Thursday's show. That way you can log in and get everything going. We're going to have 2 options. We're going to have the March Madness app / CBS's tournament game. And then we're going to also have ESPN's. So either way, you can win double money if you want to. Each prize is going to be $50. So it is free to enter, $50. Come on, y'all. That could buy you lunch for a few days, especially with this terrible economy right now. So go ahead and get in. I'll post links. It'll be in the link tree. And that about does it for today's segment. Very excited to get into the month of March. It's going to be a great championship week. As I've said, Tennessee is the team to watch this week. We'll talk more about him on Thursday. Be expecting a special guest on Thursday. We'll most likely have Tommy back, but we'll have a third member of our crew. So it's going to get very, very interesting. Besides that, expect lots of video content coming, such as recap videos from every day in the tournament, Selection Sunday content, and much, much more. It's heating up, y'all, and we are excited to get into the true season of March Madness. Thank you so much for tuning in.
This has been The Bracketologist, presented by Anchor. We'll see you guys next time.